All right. Chapter 4, The White Goddess. Since the close connection here suggested between ancient British, Greek, and Hebrew religion will not be easily accepted, I wish to make it immediately clear that I am not a British Israelite or anything of that sort. My reading of the case is that at different periods in the second millennium BC, a confederacy of mercantile tribes called in Egypt the people of the sea were displaced from the Aegean area by invaders from the northeast and southeast, that some of these wandered north along already established trade routes and eventually reached Britain and Ireland, and that others wandered west also along established trade routes, some elements reaching Ireland by way of North Africa and Spain. Still others invaded Syria and Canaan, among them the Philistines, who captured the shrine of Hebron in southern Judea from the Edomite clan of Caleb. But the Calebites, dogmen, allies of the Israelite tribe of Judah, recovered it about 200 years later and took over a great part of the Philistine religion at the same time. These borrowings were eventually harmonized in the Pentateuch with a body of Semitic, Indo-European, and Asiatic myth. In the Pentateuch, with a body of Semitic, Indo-European, and Asiatic myth, which composed the religious traditions of the mixed Israelite confederacy. The connection then between the early myths of the Hebrews, the Greeks, and the Celts is that all three races were civilized by the same Aegean people, whom they conquered and absorbed? I bet you that's supposed to be absorbed. And this is not of merely antiquarian interest, for the popular appeal of modern Catholicism is, despite the patriarchal trinity and the all-male priesthood based rather on the Aegean mother and son religious tradition to which it has slowly reverted than on its Armenian or Indo-European warrior god elements. To write in greater historical detail about the Denens, Danu, Dene, or Don appears in Roman records as Donus, divine father of Cotius, the sacred king of the Cotians, a Ligurian confederacy that gave its name to the Cottian Alps. Cotis, or Cotius is a widely distributed name. Codes appear as a dynastic title in Thrace between the 4th century BC and the 1st century AD, and the Catini and Atacoti of North Britain and many intervening Cat and Cot tribes between there and Thrace are held to be of Cottian stock. There was also a Cottis dynasty in Paphlagonia on the southern shore of the Black Sea. All seem to take their name from the great goddess Kotito, or Cotis, who was worshipped orgiastically in Thrace, Corinth, and Sicily. Her nocturnal orgies, the Kotia, were, according to Strabo, celebrated in much the same way as those of Demeter, the barley goddess of primitive Greece, and of Cybele, the lion and bee goddess of Phrygia, in whose honor young men castrated themselves. In Sicily, a feature of the Kotia was the carrying of bows hung with fruit and barley cakes. In classical legend, Cotis was the hundred-handed brother of the hundred-handed monsters, Briareus and Gyes, allies of the god Zeus in his war against the Titans on the borders of Thrace and Sicily. These monsters were called Hekaton to Charori, the hundred-handed ones. The story of this war against the Titans is intelligible only in the light of early Greek history. The first Greeks to invade Greece were the Achaeans, who broke into Thessaly about 1900 BC. They were patriarchal herdsmen and worshipped the Indo-European male trinity of gods. Originally perhaps Mitra, Varuna, and Indra, whom the Mitanni of Asia Minor still remembered in 1400 BC, subsequently called Zeus, Poseidon, and Hades. Little by little, they conquered the whole of Greece and tried to destroy the semi-matriarchal Bronze Age civilization that they found there, but later compromised with it, accepted matrilineal succession, and enrolled themselves as sons of the variously named great goddess. They became allies of the very mixed population of the mainland and islands, some of them long-headed, some broad-headed, some they named Pelagesians or seafarers. The Pelagesians claimed to be born from the teeth of the cosmic snake Ophion. Hold on, let me get a drink of coffee. Right at Ophion. Drywall dust. Oh. Where was I? Ophion. The Pelagesians claimed to be born from the teeth of the cosmic snake Ophion, whom the great goddess in her character of Eurynomy, wide rule, had taken as her lover, thereby initiating the maternal creation. Ophion and Eurynomy are Greek renderings of the original names. They may have called themselves Danaans after the same goddess in her character of Danae, who presided over agriculture. At any rate, the Achaeans who had occupied Argolis now also took the name of the Danaans and also became seafarers, while those who remained north of the Isthmus of Corinth were known as Ionians, children of the cow goddess Io. Of the Pelagesians driven out of the Argolis, some founded cities in Lesbos, Chios, and Snodos. Others escaped to Thrace, the Troad of the North Aegean Islands. A few clans remained in Attica, Magnesia, and Magnesia. Is that missing? Is that a space? Is that a mistake? I don't know. And elsewhere. The most warlike of the remaining Pelagesians were the centaurs of Magnesia, whose clan totems included the Rhinic and mountain lion. They also worshipped the horse, probably not the Asiatic horse brought from the Caspian at the beginning of the 2nd millennium BC, but an earlier and inferior European variety, a sort of Dartmoor pony. The centaurs, under their sacred king Charon, welcomed Achaean aid against their enemies, the Lapiths of northern Thessaly. Hold on. Yeah, we're just going to go to here. All right. The word charion is apparently connected with the Greek chair, a hand, and centaurs with centron, or a goat. In my essay, What Food the Centaurs Ate, I suggest that they intoxicated themselves by eating flycap, Amanita muscaria, the 100-clawed toad, an example of which appears carved on an Etruscan mirror at the feet of their ancestor Ixion, where the Hecatontocharoi, the centaurs of mountainous Magnesia, whose friendship was strategically necessary to the Achaean pastoralists of Thessaly and Boeotia. The centaur's mother goddess was called in Greek Leucothea, the white goddess, but the centaurs themselves called her Ino or Plastine, and her rock-cut image is still shown near the ancient pinnacle town of Tantalus. She had also become the mother of Meracertus, or Hercules Melkarth, the god of early semi-Semitic invaders. The Greeks claimed to remember the date of Zeus's victory and alliance with the Hecatontocharoi over the Titans of Thessaly. The well-informed Tatian quotes a calculation by the 1st century AD historian Thales that it took place 322 years before the 10-year siege of Troy. Since the fall of Troy was then confidently dated at 1183 BC, the answer is 1505 BC. If this date is more or less accurate, the legend probably refers to an extension of Achaean power in Thessaly at the expense of Pelagesian tribes who were driven off to the north. The story of the Gigantomachia, the fight of the Olympian gods with the giants, probably refers to a similar but much later occasion when the Greeks found it necessary to subdue the warlike Magnesians in their fastnesses of Pelion and Ossa, apparently because of trouble caused by their exogammatic practices, which conflicted with the Olympian patriarchal theory and gave them an undeserved reputation as sexual maniacs. It also records Hercules' charm against the nightmare. The Achaeans became Cretanized between the 17th and 15th centuries in late Minoan age, which in Greece is called the Mycenaean, after Mycenae, the capital city of the Atreus dynasty. The Aeolian Greeks invaded Thessaly from the north and were further able to occupy Boeotia and the western Peloponnese. They settled down amicably with the Achaean Danaans and became known as the Minyans. It is likely that both nations took part in the sack of Knossos about the year 1400, which ended Cretan sea power. The reduction of Crete, by now became largely Greek-speaking, resulted in the great expansion of Mycenaean power. Yeah, I'm going to leave it right there. Oh, I'll finish the sentence. Conquests in Asia Minor, Phoenicia, Libya, and the Aegean Islands. Now I'm done.